Welcome back to Morning Joe. Beautiful live picture at 8:23 in the morning of the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree lit up on Wednesday night, and now they're through the holidays. Joining us now, professor, author, and political commentator Michael Eric Dyson. He's out this week with a new book titled Long Time Coming, Reckoning with Race in America. The Washington Post's Eugene Robinson is back with us as well. Professor Dyson, it's great to see you. Congratulations on the book. And I should say, as a partisan alumnus, congratulations on your new gig at the Divinity School at Vanderbilt. We're excited you're there.
Thank you so much. It's great to be there. And any alma mater of yours is a good school for me.
You just got to be careful. You don't want to run into Meacham in the faculty lounge. He'll corner you on the War of 1812, and it gets turned into a long afternoon. So avoid Meacham at all costs.
Text, man. He's already collared me. He's already collared me.
So, Professor Dyson, let's talk about the book and the term reckoning. It's sort of become since the murder of George Floyd back on May 25th, it's sort of become the catch-all phrase that people have used. This is a reckoning in America on the question of race. What does that mean exactly? Have we begun that reckoning, or are we just talking about it as if we have?
Yeah, that's a great question. It has both secular and sacred roots, right? In terms of the sacred roots, you hear in the Bible God saying through the people that we're going to reckon with the issues of your sin, of your limitations. In terms of the secular world, a reckoning is a time of serious self-reflection, of introspection, of serious self-criticism, and as a result of that, moving forward to change political practice so that it reflects the ideals, the morals, the norms, and the aspirations of the culture. So both religiously and in terms of sacred culture, we got to figure out how we get from what we think is good to what we know is good by doing the right thing. And reckoning in this case with race means that after the George Floyd video, many people who had been denying the truth of race before then, those who had ignored police brutality, those who had suggested that perhaps black people weren't exactly telling the truth or couldn't be that dire of a circumstance as they described, saw a video that showed a man laying prostrate on the ground, presenting a threat to nobody, a danger to no one else, and yet he was murdered. He was killed. The knee of Derek Chauvin boring into his neck, his mortally bruised column, then asphyxiated and left with us to deal with the body. But not only his body, but the body of evidence that suggests that America is not where it ought to be. And a lot of people said this is the time for us to figure out in America to truly represent the ideals of democracy, freedom, and justice. We got to make a change with what we're doing.
I was so fascinated to hear you talk about your audience for this book. And you are a Baptist preacher, so you've invoked the New Testament and Paul, and you say, look, I get it. A lot of people who read this book are already converted. I may be preaching to some of the converted, but like Paul, if I can plant the seed at least of an idea with some of these other people who've not yet been converted, not yet understood the depth of the black experience in America, this can be the beginning of a conversation at least.
That's well stated and absolutely right. I figure that, look, we've got to talk to those people who understand what's going on, and we got to speak to those who just now are coming to grips with what they see as a reality that they should have recognized but didn't. I don't want to spend time trying to indict them for having had a kind of moral or spiritual or even racial amnesia. The point is, now that you are awake, what can we do? Now that we found love, what are we going to do with it, so to speak? And I think it's time to do that. And people say, well, you're preaching to the choir on some of this, but I say the choir needs practice too. You got to get the altos in order, the sopranos got to come together, the bass and the baritone. So we've got to practice what we preach, and then we've got to go out there and then win converts, so to speak, by the sheer force of our moral energy, but also because people are now aware of what's going on. Perhaps we can use this to forge connections among many vast constituencies in America. When we have this motto, e pluribus unum, out of many one, we've got to see that African American people in particular, who have been demonized, who have been stigmatized by practices in this culture, have a new opportunity to move forward, because those in the dominant culture see that there have been some destructive practices afoot in the culture. And this is why, especially at the top of the food chain, with the President of the United States of America articulating ideals and beliefs that have emboldened white supremacists and white nationalists, this is a new day. So a new reckoning comes with the new administration. administration, a new way forward, because we have now grasped hold of the necessity to make a change.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.